The modern-day exclusion of Spiritism and Fetishism within the context of Omenanni, Odinanni. In Igbo cosmology and spirituality, the cultural and spiritual practices of the Igbo people are intertwined, but the recent trend of shifting Igbo history and Igbo narrative away from spirit veneration, Igbo or Igalosi, and fetishism, Isu Atepa, is a modern-day repetition of cognitive dissonance and proliferation of culture that was invented and pushed down on us by our colonialists. But the difference in this proliferation is that it is now being carried out by Igbo, who now identify with a different religious sect. These individuals tend to embrace and exalt some cultural markers such as our language, our food, our funeral practices and rites, but they tend to exclude the core aspects of our origin that makes up these practices or that makes these practices possible. Hence, they target paganism, urging members to disassociate themselves from it. But is it possible for an ancient culture to exist without being shrouded in spiritual elements or spiritism? Spiritism or Igbo is a foundational element of our culture, our traditions. It is the origin on which every cultural element was built on. For instance, the celebration of Iriji was established based on our regard to Ani or Ifejoko. And in the case of Nnewi, the celebration of Okuka Ezemewi is the celebration of the new year, and it's also a way by which Nnewi indigents seed for a bountiful harvest in the coming days. Therefore, how can we decide to separate our cultural practice of Iriji and others from every cosmic being that we built these practices on? Now, in an attempt to render the activities of Igbo divinities in the past a proliferation or an aberration of culture, these individuals adopt the veneration of Okike, the creator, while interpreting Alose as an aberration of culture that the church came to correct using tools like slavery and colonization, which they interpret as God's wrath. But our ancestors have always seen these deities as agents to this bigger deity, and thereby they act as bridges or messengers in our interaction with this universal being. But with our interaction with the early missionaries, we began to see these deities as what they weren't. And this is why in 2024, we have a sect of our brothers and our sisters who outrightly demonize our cultural and our spiritual practices, or they feign ignorance by pushing narratives that separate us fundamentally from our origin, culture, and spirituality. What am I trying to achieve with this topic? Now, the modern-day exclusion of spiritism and fetishism within our context of Omenanni and Odinanni comes as a result of our Christian brothers and sisters repeatedly reinforcing the notion that in the Igbo, we did not perform spirit veneration, which is Igbo, that what we did was ab initio, we understood the concept of Chukwokike, God, and we worshipped God. That we never worshipped or venerated these indigenous deities. But in reality, how did our ancestors understood this concept of God? Now, we never had a direct interaction with this God, because to us, our ancestors believed that this God figure, the creator, this God figure is without concern, because we believe that this God figure has other important things to do. That is why this being God, or this, Chukwokike, created other aspects of him that we see in form of chi to represent its interest in our lives. And this is why if we want to communicate to this God or to this being, we make this communication through our chi. Now, while this God being or God factor has created this aspect of him in form of the chi also employs other spirits which we refer to as ancestral or familiar spirits to aid the chi in carrying out its assignment in our life. And this is why other spirit or cosmic beings like Alose, like Ndi Chi, like Mwamiri, Ndi Otu, Agbo, Dimiri, and the rest of them, this is where they come from. They are spirits that accompany a present individual chi. And the whole reason that they exist is to aid us in carrying out our cosmic purpose. Now, this is the indigenous perception of our interaction with this God factor. But because of cognitive dissonance and because on our own, Igbo has basically inculcated the idea of repeatedly prolificating our own culture, we've now invented numerous ways to push out these characteristics of deities or chi, Miri, and the rest of these cosmic beings. If they found out numerous creative ways to shift them out of our indigenous identity, by always trying to say that our ancestors only worshipped God directly without all these other means, thereby demonizing and referring to all these other cosmic beings as idolatry. But our ancestors had their own unique way of perceiving these things and interacting with these deities and cosmic beings in their own way, how they understood and how they preferred to communicate and interact with them. Now, the mistake that they do here is that they tend to embrace and exalt other cultural elements like our language, our food, our funeral practices, our festivals like eating mao. They tend to embrace these cultural aspects. Don't even some of these churches disagree with these cultural practices. Example, the practice of Igbo Zwada. Many churches are against it. So instead of you taking the corpse to the father's house, they will encourage their members to bring the corpse to the church before taking the corpse to the house. That's if any, because some of them, once you've taken the corpse to the house, you will no longer be able to take that corpse to her father's house. You just go straight to her husband's house and you bury her. This is them prolificating our culture, and we are allowing it. But some other religious sector affiliations, like the Catholics, they are eager to embrace and exalt some of these cultural practices. But they would always try to exclude the core aspects of these, the core aspects and origins of these practices. Now, I mentioned Iriji. Now, why do we celebrate the yam? We are not celebrating the yam on its own, but we are celebrating the cosmic beings that made it possible. Because we believe that there is a deity, Ani, that helps in the production of these crops, that helps by making the land favorable to us. So by celebrating the yam, we are directly or indirectly celebrating Ani Hejoko. And these are deities, cosmic beings. So how can we separate the culture from its origin if we are only supposed to embrace the culture without celebrating its origin? It does not make any logical sense. So when people basically prolificate these cultures or try to separate and exclude these spiritual connotations or spiritual meanings to why we have some sort of practice or tradition, we are just simply being hypocritical to the fact that our culture and our spirituality are not exclusive. They are inclusive. They come as a package deal. You cannot have culture without having spirituality, because culture was founded or built on our spiritual practices. So we need not to listen to people that tell you that Igbo alose aburo Omenanni or Igbo mo aburo Omenanni. That's what Omenanni is. It's culture, it's language, it's food, it's our festivals or ceremonies. That Spiritism is not a core aspect of it. But in reality, Spiritism and Fetishism is a core aspect of our culture in our traditions. Yagasya.